Hi, welcome to another Mango YouTube video. And I'm super excited to introduce you, if you haven't met already, a really good friend of mine, somebody that I've been hearing about over the last, I don't know how many years, but finally really got connected to him in the last year or so and have very similar thoughts and ideas on all the stuff we're going to talk about. So, Zach Shelley, welcome to the Mango YouTube channel.
Thank you for having me, Laura. I really appreciate it. I'm super excited to be here and I'm glad we finally connected. I've heard your name ever since I came into practice management with Front Office Rocks and all those other fun things. But we never did truly connect until this last year, getting to learn about each other. Our mindsets are very, very similar. So I'm super excited to do more of these recordings together and dig deeper into our phones and what Mango can provide to give ourselves a better patient experience.
I love it. I love it. So this first video, I just wanted people to get to know you, what your
Yeah.
experience is, kind of where you are in your life, and then where you're going in the future. So back us up. Tell us how you got into dentistry, and then tell us a little bit about your practice and your experience.
Yeah. So I got into dentistry out of the least likely way of anybody else. I think I'm probably the only office manager that was a previous professional skateboarder. So I was a professional skateboarder for about 15 years, and a good friend of mine had a dental lab. That's how he supplemented his income also with his skateboarding career. And he was looking for a driver for his dental lab. So that's actually how I got into dentistry.
Wow.
I was delivering cases, prosthetic cases to offices way back in the day, and I found an interest in dentures and partials and prosthetics and crown and bridge and all this stuff. It was very intriguing because I'm quite artistically inclined, and I was like, I could take a stab at this. So I started training and learning and wanting to become a dental technician. And we fast forward 11 years of that. I ended up running the lab, transitioning us from fully analog to full digital to CAD. I was doing all the designing in CAD for full arch cases and crown and bridge. And in that latter end of my stint, a dentist reached out to me and asked me if I took lunches, which I thought was kind of a loaded question. But, dental techs, most people think they just kind of just sit on the bench and grind all day. And so I said, yeah. And my wife was like, he's offering you a job. I was like, no, he wants to talk about a case, because I was a chairside guy, right? I always went, eventually in the tail end, I was a guy that went chairside with the docs, helped make sure everything went smooth. If they're having trouble with the case, that I could troubleshoot it for them. And sure enough, he offered me a job that day, saying he wanted me to run his practice. They never had an office manager before. Fast forward to now, I've been in 5 years managing this practice here in Satellite Beach, which is a dual practice. It's general and pedo with 5 providers. And that's where I'm sitting at currently, and then running a big dental office management Facebook group.
Yeah. So what's the name of your Facebook group?
Dental Office Manager Leadership Network.
Okay, so we are
Yeah.
going to hear a lot more about that as we progress forward, because we're going to be
Yeah.
collaborating a lot more together. And then over your shoulder, I don't know which side it is, I see a thing that's got DADOM on it.
Yes.
NADOM, tell us about that.
Yeah. So we've got all 3. If we point to them: fellowship,
I only
master,
have
and
one. I
diplomat.
don't have mine up
Okay.
either, but I got my fellow.
Yes. So that's the delegation program through AADOM. I started with my fellowship and kind of pushed myself, and then went into master last year. And then this current year, I got my diplomat, which is, a lot of people are like, well, what does that mean? And, for some people that, an employer might look at that and say, that's a great certification. I've seen that you push yourself, but it's also a personal accomplishment. It pushes you to get outside your barriers and your boundaries. I got to really, truly connect through the mastermind at AADOM with you, Laura, and really just digging deeper of what are we doing as practice managers? We're at this level, how do we get to that next level? And this is one of those things, as we push ourselves past that point and really make ourselves right, which is probably one of the hardest things to do. It's force yourself to learn to write and about things that you're passionate about, but also be able to get that message across, right? That's how we grow. And that's what the goal of these videos, we can both agree on, is how do we translate this information in a way that actually clicks and sticks with you to get your practice to the next level for your patient experience?
For sure, for sure. And actually, I was recently doing a video with a friend of yours, Kirk, who also
Oh,
does
yeah.
a lot of, so we're doing similar videos. So your
Yes.
skateboard background, he's rock star background,
Yep. Yep.
both kind of new into dental, but I bring the wisdom, the years of
Yes.
experience background to this.
Yep.
So
Yes.
for those that don't know, AADOM is the American Association of Dental Office Management. And I started going in 2012. And I remember walking in thinking, I found my people. This is my people, office managers, because there were days before that. I mean, we were always called the front desk.
Yep.
I remember checking into a meeting once. It was doctor, hygienist, assistant, and other. That's how we were considered. would
You're
go
the others.
because there was hardly anything for us. And so AADOM was a launching for many of us of just, giving the knowledge and respect and training that office
Yeah.
managers need. I mean, we're the backbone to the practice. So
Yep.
tell us a little bit about, and then from that, there's all these amazing groups like yours. So
Yeah.
there's so many resources now for dental office managers. So tell us
Yes.
about your evolution in the 5 years of running a practice. What was that like walking in with no experience? And then
Yeah.
where are you now?
Yeah, and that's a fun thing. I always like to. I don't ever correct anybody because it's totally different. I had a ton of management experience coming into the practice, right? Like I had management in the dental tech space, and then previous to that, I had retail management. I had business management. I had a lot of opportunity to lead and manage people, but what I didn't have is that clinical dentistry knowledge, the business of dentistry knowledge, which really differentiates from a lot of other industries, the way we operate,
Which
the way we run.
I'm going to put a plug in there real quick. So that's why I started Front Office Rocks 20 years ago, because I believe, and you were right with that. I think that I didn't know dental when I got into it. I got into dentistry because
Yeah.
I was married to a dentist, right? I had to
Yeah.
learn the dental, but I had the business and operation side. So Front
Yep.
Office Rocks was designed to teach the dental to people who
Yeah.
didn't know dental. So you're right with that.
Yeah. Which super important. And then dental knowledge that I had was the opposite side of dentistry, right? Like I had the back end side after the teeth they're gone, right? Like either they're prepped for a crown full arch case, they've got implants, or they have no teeth and they're a dentist and we're trying to reconstruct that. But what the ability that gave me coming into the practice is I understood the patient experience and I understood what the patient saw because I was the guy there listening to the patient like they've gotten this wrong every single time and they brought me back late. They would tell me everything. So I got to hear all of the nitty gritty. When the doctors run in there, they're like, "Hey, will you see what's going on and I'll be in a minute." I got to talk to these patients and listen to their pain points. So when I came in, my mindset was more of like, well, this practice has never had an office manager. It was a very large practice, which was very surprising to me. And I came in with a lot of knowledge on the tech side, but not really on the clinical side. So I was kind of coming in blind in an aspect. I was asking lots of questions. Like they were talking about talking about caries, and I was like, well, what does caries actually mean? Like that's how vague my knowledge was. And I knew some instruments, but they were all instruments on the dental side. So they started to talk about prophies and scalers and discoids and cleoids and Hollenbachs, and I'm like, you're talking gibberish to me.
Uh-huh.
But I'm having to figure out what these are because I've got to order things. I've got to train our team. So really, I told the doc, I was like, I'm very forward thinker. I'm one that wants to push myself to be better. Like I don't need anybody to push me. Like I'm going to push myself probably harder than anybody can push me. So I was like, hey, there's you mentioned this association, so which was AADOM in my contract of CE, and I was like, well, I'm interested in joining. I think it'd be good for me to understand and be able to glean from other people. So I joined AADOM in 2020 and started just taking as many courses online as I could about leadership and about dental and learning just the whole clinical side. But I kept finding myself like I'm missing a part. Like I'm training so many people in this office, but I don't have the knowledge or credentials in some aspects like our assistants. I'm bringing assistants on all the time and I'm trying to train them, and they're like, well, who are you? You don't know what
Right.
you're doing. I'm like, I do to an extent. So then I was like, hey, send me to University of Florida. Like I've had enough chair time. Like I spent time auditing our doctors and assisting them chair side. I had enough hours. I said, I've got enough hours. We can prove this here. I want to do my radiology. I want to get my EFDA. I want to go to school. I want to do this. And he's like, well, but you're not going to be an assistant. I was like, but if you want me to train your assistants to be top tier, I have to be able to know it top tier too.
Wow.
And he's like, well, that's valid. So he sent me to University of Florida. I did my radiology. I did my EFDA. And then I came back with even more clinical knowledge of actually understanding dentistry, right? How we're treating these teeth, how we're assisting these doctors, how we're keeping our patients happy. And then, meshing that with learning from the front desk of how do we translate treatment plans? How do we go over finances? How do we get patients understanding what we're actually doing? Because we assume a lot on the patient. We assume they understand a lot of things. We're like, all right, here you go. It's $5,000. You good to go? And they're like, but they don't even know the questions to ask because we haven't even given them the opportunity to understand what's going on.
Of the time we're talking about a tooth, I always joke about this. We're talking about a tooth
Yeah.
on the upper left and their tongue is on the upper right. Like they're not even, you're watching them and they're not even thinking of the same
No.
tooth that you're thinking of. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we tend to not even speak the same language with our patients. So in the aspect, I've referenced this doctor several times. His name's Timothy Morris. He works here in our area. He's a very, very good dentist, and I learned a lot from him as a dental tech. And he told me, he goes, the moment I stopped having trouble with prosthetics was when I learned I was asking the wrong questions. And I was like, that was powerful enough statement there. And I said, well, do you want to elaborate any more on that? And he said, exactly. I would love to. He says, I have an exact situation I want to tell you about. And I said, okay. And he said, he was talking with this patient, and this patient had come in for like 20 different resets on this denture, like over and over and over. So those of you that are listening, if you don't know all that, like it's resetting the teeth and wax. So little modern refinements before we actually go to the final process, and kept going. She wasn't happy. Finally got it processed, still wasn't happy. And so he realized he's not asking her the correct questions. So he decided to ask her a different question, which was, what in your life do you want to change after we complete this denture? And the answer will floor you, because this is the reason why we never are able to meet our patients where they're at. She answered and said, I want my husband to not divorce me. The expectations of this denture were in a realm that we could never accomplish.
Right.
But what he found out is, now that I understand what you're wanting to fix, I can approach this in a different manner to understand how to help you accept what I'm fixing for you. I can't fix an outside problem. So he got me to really think of asking good questions to patients of like, what truly are you trying to fix with this? Like, is it pain? Is it aesthetics? Are you struggling and you don't have money, but you're in pain and you need to figure it out? Like, there are ways we can ask patients and talk with patients, especially when we get into the phones. Like, when they're on the phone, we can learn so much about our patients before they even step foot through the door. And that's where I was like, man. So I started using that with patients, and the amount of success that we had, they're like, some people are like, man, I just want my teeth back. I don't want people to laugh at me. I'm like, okay, perfect. I know exactly what you want. They're going to be honest because they have something that's either attainable or not. And then we know how to approach things. So I learned a ton from him. So after I did that and I did my EFDA, like, I felt like I started to get some grounding, but it took a good several years, to get acceptance in the office of not having the doctor be the OM anymore, and me coming in and just building that trust. And I speak on this a lot on the podcast that we do with Kirk. So Kirk and I do the
You're a little
podcast
fun.
together,
What's your
and
podcast?
it's Management Unfiltered. So it's under the Dental Unfiltered podcast. We have 3 different channels. Kirk and I, we call ourselves the skateboarding rock stars.
I'm trying to
Where
get
we
myself in there. We did a fun meme on that. I'm trying to be like the phone
Yes,
rock star in the background. Are there phone
yes,
rock
we're gonna have you on an episode there, Laura.
Okay,
I've
you
already
don't
talked
want
to
me
Kirk
singing.
about it.
There's nothing about that, but yes.
But what I talk about on that podcast a lot is the owner docs investing in their team, which I think is super, super important. And a lot of times they see, they're like, well, I'm just going to pay into this and I'm not going to see any return. I'm like, well, you get out what you put in. And, you definitely have to look for the right candidates to invest in. You can't just invest in anything. It's just like financial investments in your portfolio. You can't just randomly select an investment and pour all your money into it. You have to be intentional about it. So 2 years ago, we're trying to get kind of further our expansion, our build, and our growth. And he said, I would love for you to look into doing some type of organizational leadership program. And, I was like, okay, I'll do some research and see, what programs are out there and what I can do. And, unfortunately, when I typed in organizational leadership, the only program that came in was Harvard Business School. And I was like, no, that's not what I'm looking for. And so I kept searching, couldn't find anything else. And it's basically a year's worth program down into like 4 months. And so it's very, very intensive, lots of work. And so I told him, I was like, hey, here's a price. I looked everywhere else. It's the only thing I can find. It's expensive, but I think it would be really good. It talks about scalability and growing a business. And he's like, do it. I think it'd be really good for you. I was like, I was hoping you'd say no, but here we go. So I signed up and I completed the organizational leadership program through Harvard Business School online,
Look at
which is that
that.
one there.
Yeah.
And that really helped me learn the ability to scale and look at your market, but also look internally with your practice. And this is just business as a whole. So I was probably one of the only dental professionals in there, but there's people from all over the world, which was really neat to see different mindsets and markets and cultures. But you look at your culture, you look at your market, you look at your products, but then you look at your internal systems and see where your systems are failing and do root cause analysis and actually like dig into your business of how you can grow and do it intentionally. And that's what we've done over the last 5 years. We've grown almost 4 million in revenue over 5 years. So we started at 3.4 million and we're pacing at 7.8 million this year. So there's been definitely steps and stages and lots of hard work that gone through it. But the biggest thing is, having an owner and a team that one believes in you and a doc that'll invest in you.
Yeah, and I see over your shoulder, you don't have any more room, so it's time to
No.
what's the next thing, right? So what we're going to do and break down on this is because I've been doing this for 20 plus years, you're not new to this, but we're going to break it down in bite-sized segments. We're going to start with the
Yes.
phones. And then what I want to do is work our way through the entire patient experience of just
Yeah.
like, what are some things, and not in this video, but in future ones, what are some things, your tips for phones, new patient calls, reactivation
Yes.
calls, recare calls? What are the tips with case presentations? And we're just going to give some knowledge where knowledge needs to go, because
Yeah.
both you and I believe that it's important to train your team. And my favorite quote is
Absolutely.
whenever dentists say, what if I invest in the team and they leave? And I say, what if you don't invest in them and they stay, which is a Henry Ford quote. And I
Yeah.
walk into many offices regularly thinking this person shouldn't be answering your phones. So there's the
Yes.
segue. You and I
Yes.
are going to talk about
Yes.
that, right?
It's going to be so much fun. It's
Awesome,
going to be
awesome.
so much
Well, if
fun.
you guys haven't followed along, follow all the things that we'll put down below in the notes of his podcast and his group on Facebook. Mango Voice is here building an AI channel, a channel on YouTube for on AI and phones. We have lots of fun conversations ahead of us. If you've got questions, reach out to either one of us or put it in the notes. We're open book. So we will talk
Absolutely.
about it. So thank you, Zach. You said you're going to be gone next week. What are you going to be out of the country for?
Yeah, so I fly out to Brazil on Friday on a mission trip, which is super exciting, and then I'll be home for a day and then headed down to Fort Lauderdale for Supercharger Dental Practice. So we got lots of fun things
Awesome.
heading forward, and Mango's going to be there. So Mango will be at Supercharge. So hope
That's
to see some of
awesome.
you guys there.
That's
Yeah,
awesome. Well, hopefully more of you guys start following along, subscribe, do all the things, and we'll start putting more content. If you see Zach out and you see this video, tell him that you're watching along with us. And until next time, Zach, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today.
thanks for having me, Laura.